It's an interesting question because people generally think, when you think about games, you think about multiple endings means variation. For us, it's more about multiple journeys. It's more about, there are literally thousands of variations of the story to get to kind of hundreds of variations of the ending. There are literally thousands of variations of the story.
There are literally thousands of variations of the story. Thousands.
Welcome to the final part of my Until Dawn review. If you haven't seen the first two parts, then I don't know why you're watching this. Go watch them. In the previous videos, I left off on Chapter 8. Chapter 8 brings us back to Emily, and wouldn't you know it, the flamethrower guy isn't trying to kill her. Instead, he gives her some flares and pushes her down a pit to get away from this creature that appears. So if it wasn't obvious, this creature is the main threat. The whole thing with Josh was just to distract you from that. You continue through the mine when, surprise, jump scare. So you actually have a chase scene that matters, because if you mess up enough QTEs, M can die here. You also finally get to see what the monster is. It looks like a tall golem. You get a choice of which path to take, and by choice I mean if you pick right, you get jump scared and are forced left anyways. You manage to get to the surface, and M turns on these conveyor belts for some reason. You can stay on this one or jump to another. They both lead to the same place, but if you stay on the first one, you can fall into a grinder if you fail the QTE. So she gets past this door, and instead of continuing to run, she stands against it and gets bitten. You can avoid getting bit here if you have the flare gun, but she manages to escape and gets back to the lodge where everyone else is. M will talk about what happened. After Mike gets there, someone knocks on the door, and he goes to see who it is with Chris. Hey, Mike actually brought the right gun this time. You can try to get Mike to give you the gun, but it doesn't matter. The flamethrower guy barges in and takes the gun. He then gathers everyone around so he can give some exposition. So that creature is called a Wendigo. It's a real-world Native American folklore. Basically, when a person cannibalizes someone else, the spirit of the Wendigo possesses them, and then they turn into one. At that point, they have a hunger for human flesh that cannot be satisfied. There are different interpretations of it, and its appearance varies. I heard one interpretation was that it was as thin as paper. Its size also varies. Basically, it can be whatever you want it to be. The Wendigo isn't something that's used very often in fiction, or at least I haven't seen it used anywhere else. So it is interesting to see it here, although that does mean the Wendigo is now associated with Until Dawn. But whatever, back to the plot. He tells them about the Wendigo and that they should hide in the basement. But Chris remembers Josh is still in the shed, but Flamethrower Dude just assumes he's already dead. But Chris insists on going to help him. So Flamethrower McGee hands him a shotgun and goes with. This line just bothers me.
I know how to use a shotgun, man.
No, you don't.
What? How do you know?
Trust me, I know.
It sounds like he watched Chris when he was at the shooting range and sees he's not a good shot, but actually since you control Chris there, he's a fucking marksman. Look at this, he doesn't miss a single shot.
Wow, nice shooting, Tex.
You would have to try to miss during that, so what's this guy going on about not knowing how to use this? This entire sequence of events is just wrong. Okay, so Chris and Flamethrower Guy, I'm just gonna call him Dinkelberg from now on. He has a name, but it's not in the game and I don't care. Chris and Dinkelberg head down to the shed. Along the way, Dinkelberg tells Chris important facts about the Wendigo, but only after Chris bugs him to tell him more, including this.
I can't see you if you're standing still. It's like toads. Sight is based on changes of movement in their field of vision.
Oh, well that's good to know. That's kind of a very important detail that could aid in their survival that you only just thought to tell him after he started asking questions. I think the first bit of information about these things you need to know is that they can't see you if you don't move. Seriously, the first thing he should have said after telling them that the bloody things even exist is, "Hey, did you see Jurassic Park? Yeah, it's like the T-Rex." I mean, come on, you're trying to save their lives here. The more they know about it, the higher chance they have to survive an encounter with it. Why is he reluctant to tell Chris important information about this creature? This is literally the fourth bit of information he gives after leaving the house, and the way he says it sounds like it's some kind of small, unimportant bit of trivia on a wiki page, and not a crippling weakness that will determine whether or not someone survives.
So if I don't move, I'm basically invisible.
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't recommend testing it out. Unless you have no other choice.
Why not? These things rely on their eyes to catch their prey. It's not like they take advantage of their other senses. The game never shows them having advanced hearing or smell. In fact, quite the opposite is shown. They rely on their eyes, and they have an easily exploited weakness in their eyes. Use it.
You're the expert on these things.
Well, anyways, the whole vision based on movement thing is stupid, and not just the story, but the gameplay as well. I'll get into that later. Besides that, the other important need-to-know information he tells Chris here is that the Wendigo are pretty much invincible to everything except fire. So they make it to the shed and Josh is gone. And Dinkelberg says this.
First, the Wendigo. He'll render you immobile. And then he strips the skin off of your entire body, piece by piece. Again, he keeps you alive and aware and feasts on your organs, one piece at a time.
Wait, I thought it couldn't see you if you don't move. Why would it render you immobile? And then this happens.
Wait! Run! Go! Now! Now! Move! Back!
God damn!
We're right out in the open. Gotta get out of here!
Oh my God. Oh shit.
There is so much wrong with this. First off, that little don't move QTE is completely meaningless. It doesn't matter if you screw it up or are successful. Dinkelberg will die regardless. So why is this here if it means nothing? Secondly, are you kidding me? This guy is supposed to be an expert on these things.
Run!
He's been hunting and capturing them for years.
Run!
He literally just told you that they can't see you if you don't move.
Run!
Why
No!
the bloody hell
Run!
would he tell you to run? He's supposed to know how to deal with them.
You're the expert on these things.
The way this should have played out is if you don't fail the QTE, he lives, but if you do fail, he dies. Not because he idiotically decides running is the best option when facing something with vision based on movement, but because Chris made noise and attracted the thing. It could jump at Chris and kill Dinkelberg because he was either in the way, or he jumped in the way to protect Chris. If that happened, it would have more of an impact because your failure is what caused his death, instead of it just being a stupid moment. And it would also leave an option for him to survive, which would actually significantly change the story. So Chris then runs away, and at this point all tension is lost. Why? Because we know that Chris knows that the Wendigo's vision is based on movement. He saw what it can do, how easily it can kill someone. Why is he running when that lets the thing know where he is? All he needs to do is stay still, and it won't see him. When the reason a character is in danger is because they are stupid, the tension is lost because you can see how anyone could easily get out of the situation. Let's compare it to Jurassic Park. The T-Rex can't see you if you don't move.
Keep absolutely still. This vision is based on movement.
Grant knows this, but the kids don't. So the T-Rex starts attacking their car, and Grant has to save them. Take a look at this part when Lex alerts the T-Rex.
Tem! Tem! Don't move! Can't see us if we don't move.
Instead of being a dumbass and telling her to run, which very well could lead to their deaths, Grant stops her from yelling and moving so the T-Rex won't be able to find them. This scene has real tension because the characters are faced with a threat that isn't just exclusively caused by their own stupidity. When the characters are this stupid, it makes it hard to care what happens to them. There is no tension when you're rooting for the monster.
Everybody's stupid. Stupid, stupid, stupid.
So Chris runs away and occasionally shoots at the thing, and this is the part when Chris can die if you fail to shoot it. But Chris can also die if he chose to shoot Ashley back during the second saw trap.
Ash, come on! This thing is right behind me! Please, let me in! Ash! What are you doing?
You've killed me!
Good.
Now this is one of the only good deaths, because it is caused by a choice made prior in the game. The problem is, it's such a simple setup that you could easily predict the moment you found out the gun was full of blanks. This would be fine if there were more deaths caused by choices made much earlier. So after that, everyone goes to the basement to hide, except Mike wants to leave, but Josh has the key to the cable car. They talk about the things they saw in the mines, and then the sanatorium, and conclude that the Wendigo brought Josh down there. Mike wants to go there to get the key, but before he can leave, Ashley finds out that Emily got bit, and they start freaking out because they think that could be how someone turns into a Wendigo. And Mike has to decide whether or not to shoot Emily. Should I shoot him? Yes.
What you say? Oh, that you only meant when.
After that, Mike leaves, and it's at this point when Ashley notices Dinkelberg's journal, and in it she finds that the bite does not cause someone to become a Wendigo. And her reaction is what you would expect.
Oh no,
What?
no.
What is it? What does it say?
It says that the bites, if it bites you, it's not infectious. It doesn't do anything.
Let me see that.
Jeez.
Oh, shit.
But hold on. What if Mike didn't kill Emily? Well, after finding out Emily won't become a Wendigo while she's still alive, this is her reaction.
Oh no,
What?
no.
What is it? What does it say?
It says that the bites, if it bites you, it's not infectious. It doesn't do anything.
Are you kidding me? Are you that lazy as to not change the dialogue? It's still the same even if M is never here. So Emily is pissed and delivers the best line in the game.
Please, just try to understand.
Understand the palm of my hand, bitch.
I love it. But wait, notice something that's missing from this entire scene.
Chris!
Chris adds absolutely nothing to this scene. Perhaps because he could have died in the previous scene and it would take too much effort to make this scene change if he was alive. Chris, why are you just sitting there? Literally all he does during the scene is say this.
I've seen what these fuckers can do, and I don't want to see it again.
He doesn't intervene, try to defend Emily, or encourage kicking her out. He doesn't even react if she dies. He doesn't even react when M slaps Ashley. Chris, that's your girlfriend being slapped there. Aren't you gonna help her? Or stand up for her? This whole scene is awful. Now, I like the idea of some of the characters not knowing if she will become one of them and you have to choose to kill her or risk her possibly turning on them. But this choice is very simplistic. Obviously, the better option is not shooting her. The problem is the monster is something already established in real-world folklore, and turning into one by being bit isn't part of the myth. If you already know about this thing, you know that there's no risk in leaving her alive. Imagine if the creature was completely original, and its bite did change people. Prior mistake could lead to disastrous consequences, and this could be one last moment to make sure no one else dies. Perhaps Dinkelberg merely thought it was a Wendigo, when it was actually something different. Maybe there could be both this creature and a Wendigo, and Emily could have a chance to get bit by either of them. So depending on which, could determine whether or not she would turn. I don't know, I'm just throwing out ideas that could possibly make this more interesting. But another problem here is, this is when it starts becoming obvious that the deaths of characters don't change the story, because Chris stops being relevant to the story from this point on. After escaping the Wendigo, he only gets a couple more lines and doesn't do anything significant. He's just there. And after this scene, Emily stops being relevant. Okay, let's rewind and see how the scene could have been improved. Well, first things first, as previously stated, Dinkelberg should be able to survive. And if he does, this scene and the rest of the story significantly changes. Dinkelberg would be there to tell them that the bite does nothing. And he would be the one to go chase the Wendigo to get the key while telling them to stay here. Mike, not completely trusting him, would then go out on his own. But whatever. He can avoid the whole choice to shoot Em if she never got bit. Also, the scene has very awkward transitions if Em died before getting back to the lodge.
I found this chair. Dried blood all over the place, like somebody'd been tortured. I'm just saying, it's weird how much crazy shit's gone on up here. That's how I got back here. You guys know what to do.
Yeah.
Almost like they were too lazy to make more dialogue, so they just played the same scene without Em, even if it makes it awkward. But moving forward, after finding out that the bite does nothing, Sam for some reason wants to go warn Mike about something. I assume she saw something important in the book, and Mike would be in a lot of danger without this knowledge. So she just says they need to warn Mike, and without question, everyone just gets up and follows her. Why? Well, I can't answer why, they just go with it. The reason she wants to leave is really stupid, but I'll get into that later. They leave and it's time for counseling. Nothing important here, just Dr. Hill telling Josh he's worthless and nobody loves him.
Game has gone terribly wrong.
Chapter 9 starts with Mike going through the sanatorium again. It's the same area that you left the last time you were here. This entire sequence is terrible. In this area, you find a sawed-off double-barrel shotgun. And instead of stuffing every pocket with as much ammo as he can possibly carry, he just grabs a handful. This shotgun is infuriating, but you'll see why later. Going in here, you find...
Hey, it's that dog!
Yeah, remember him? If you befriend him, he will be here. Hey, an actual choice with an effect. Now we have a companion who will help out and make things easier. Wrong! The dog does absolutely nothing. All that happens is, if you kick it earlier, he doesn't show up here. And if he is here, he just follows you, but doesn't help against all the Wendigo. The only change is if you don't blockade a certain door, it dies. But it doesn't matter, because if he lives, he just leaves at the same spot anyway. This place is crawling with Wendigo. And if you're wondering where they came from, throughout the game you can find clues that tell the backstory of the mine and sanatorium. Basically, a bunch of miners got trapped in a cave-in and started eating each other. Then they turned into Wendigo while in the sanatorium.
Jesus, hot sauce Christmas cake, this is fucking unbelievable.
We also find out in Dinkelberg's journal that he's been hunting them and imprisoning them in here. He doesn't kill them because that would release the spirit of the Wendigo to infect other people. They never explain how the infection works. Is it that a spirit infects someone and then they get a craving for human flesh that will turn them into a Wendigo? Or is it that it only infects them after they've already eaten someone? Anyways, Dinkelberg wasn't very good at keeping them locked up since a few of them are loose. So when you encounter the first one, a can falls over, and for some reason Mike points at the can instead of looking where it came from. You can shoot it, but it doesn't matter since whatever you do, a Wendigo jump scares you. This section is full of you having to shoot Wendigo, and not once does Mike reload. Okay, I can't believe I have to explain this, but apparently the developers don't know how double-barreled shotguns work. Okay, so double barrels can only hold 2 shells at a time, which means that after every 2 shots, you need to reload. You can't just push 10 shells in one end. You only have 2. Is it like Resident Evil? Is Mike just reloading in the menu and we just can't see it? There's this part here where you get attacked by a bunch of Wendigo still in their cages, with QTEs that don't mean anything. Yeah, Mike's hearing is ruined after that. You could also shoot them, and you'd think that, hey, since they're stuck, that you shouldn't shoot them to conserve ammo. Since, as we've seen, they went out of their way to show he only took a handful of shells, actually showing the ammo, unlike the other guns which they didn't do that. So it wouldn't be unreasonable to assume that in this situation you do have limited ammo. I mean, it makes sense. Why else would they have this part where you can waste ammo if not to have it lead to you not having ammo later when you are actually in danger? You gotta stop giving this game the benefit of the doubt. You have unlimited ammo. There is no point, no consequence for wasting your ammo on these locked up Wendigo. Why bother doing this if you have unlimited ammo? This is a perfect setup for a death, and they didn't capitalize on it. I think I know the reason. because the story dictates that Mike survives this entire sequence. That is the most aggravating part. During this whole part where you are fighting and trying to avoid the Wendigo, Mike can't die. Not one instance can he die here. If you fail to get away from them, it just cuts to the next character, and we find Mike still alive later. I've asked this many times by now, but what the fuck is the point? You have your choice-based game where the entire point is making your choices have consequences, and give you 8 different characters so that you can get them killed, but just not have any opportunity for Mike to die here? Why? This is frustrating. So this section ends if a Wendigo gets you, but if you avoid them all, it ends with you blowing up the place. So next we get a scene with, oh hey, Jess. Remember her? It's been a very long time since we've seen her. Last time was chapter 4, in fact. It's like the game just completely forgot about her up until this point. You know, it might have been interesting if she had survived, she could actually impact the story, but we ain't having any of that. She somehow didn't freeze to death, but what's more important is we literally just see her wake up. That's the entire scene. We now move on to the next set of characters. So, back with Sam and her dumbass plan. Chris is acting like he's dying here. I mean, he sprained his leg earlier, but aside from that, he's fine, so I'm not sure why he's acting like he can't go on. But then again, Sam is rushing everyone and not letting them rest. So you can either leave Chris behind or encourage him to keep moving. After that, they get to this door that Mike locked, so they go down a manhole. Ash thinks it's a good idea to maybe close the manhole so nothing can follow them, but Sam is so unconcerned with anything other than finding Mike and runs ahead with everyone else. You reach a fork in the road, but down the left path you hear Jess yelling. If you go right, you just meet up with everyone else, and now Sam pretends to have been concerned. But if you go left, you find this trap door with something trying to break through. Guess what's inside it?
I salute my fallen enemy!
Now you can ignore it and continue forward, but this was the point of showing Jess being still alive, so you can get Ash killed. Whether or not Ash meets with the others, they get to a rock wall, and then Sam tells the others to go back. Are you serious? You were so adamant that you all go to find Mike, and then you just send them back. Bitch, Ashley could have died because of this. Also, funny thing about this is that if Ash dies, she doesn't show any concern for her missing. Even if Sam and Ash were the only ones there, she wouldn't care that she's just suddenly alone. So if you left Chris behind, you get to play as him for a moment here, just doing the exact same thing Ash did. You can get him killed in the exact same way as Ash.
Huh? Oh, no! Yeah!
But if Ash died here, then Chris is guaranteed to die here.
Huh?
So then we see Josh is still alive. Great. Now we're back to Sam with another annoying climbing section. Nothing eventful happens in here. If Mike blew up the sanatorium, then he would be attacked by a flaming Wendigo here, and you knock its head off. Of course he can't die here. Hey Mike, why would you leave that shotgun? It's got infinite ammo, don't leave it, you idiot. So we get to hear what freaked out Sam earlier so much that she just had to get to Mike at all costs.
What the hell are you doing here anyway?
I was gonna warn you about the Wendigos.
Are you fucking serious? That's why you did this? To warn him about the Wendigo? It amazes me that this game wanted to tell a single story so badly that it sacrificed being able to make meaningful choices to change that story. And yet, it still doesn't know what to do. The story dictates that Mike and Sam be in the mine together, but it doesn't know how to get Sam with him, so it made this as an excuse to get her over there. You see, this is what I call bad writing. They had point A and point B, and the path connecting them, but they couldn't find a reason why that path was made, so they just said, fuck it, we don't need a reason, just do it. And ignore the other characters, they aren't important anymore. Mike and Sam are the main characters of this story now. Anyways, if Mike wasn't able to get away from the Wendigo earlier, you just have to walk a bit further to find Mike, and you just blow up the place anyway. It's essentially the same thing, but that ends this chapter. No counseling this time. Well, we finally made it to the final chapter. This one starts with some counseling. More the same as last time, Dr. Hill telling Josh how much of a worthless subhuman he is.
There's more to be afraid of that can be dreamt up by the unhinged imagination of a self-indulgent, spoiled little brat!
After he leaves, we get control of Josh for the first time in the game. But all you do is walk a bit and get jump scared by hallucinations of your sisters. So this scene is here to show that Josh is completely crazy, which we picked up on much earlier, but I suppose it doesn't hurt to push it a bit further. But this scene tries way too hard to freak you out. Oh, look at this gore, be spooked. Oh, she took her face off, how scary. Look, it's hard for me to take it seriously when a giant pig face comes out of the wall and then you punch it in the mouth.
Falcon punch! Yes!
I'm not scared, I'm laughing. There are much better and subtle ways you could show that he's crazy, and all he could think of was this. All the horror in this game is just gore and jump scares. So after that, we're back with Mike and Sam exploring the caves. Oh yes, just jump in the freezing water, I'm sure nothing will go wrong. So you can find more clues about Hannah down here, and one of them is really annoying. You find her diary that basically confirms she is a Wendigo. After a while, she ate Beth. It was pretty easy to figure that out before, but you can easily miss this, so it's okay. But there are a couple things annoying about this. One will come up later, but right now, the diary is always the same. I thought that maybe, if Beth let go of Hannah at the start, that the diary would have been different. But no. Hannah doesn't get upset that her sister dropped her off a cliff. Moving forward, you open a door that leads to where the Wendigo stores its food. Every character who has died will show up here, and there are a few problems. So first off, this is their reaction to seeing everyone else dead.
You see that?
Yeah.
Bodies.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of them. Oh my god.
No!
I'm gonna be sick.
Pretty reasonable. But here's their reaction when only Dinkelberg has died.
You see that?
Yeah.
Bodies.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of them. Oh my god.
No!
I'm gonna be sick.
Are you really that lazy? There's a lot of bodies? Where? Because I only see one. This is another example of how they were too lazy to change scenes based on your choices. I mean, come on, would it have been that hard to have more than one bit of dialogue for this scene? I know those celebrity voice actors and the shiny graphics must have eaten up your budget, so you didn't have much left for the writing, but come on. Now, earlier I mentioned that the Wendigo's sight is really stupid, and this room showcases why. Why would something that can only see something if it's moving store its food like this? It wouldn't be able to see it. You'd think it would eat the people it kills right away so it doesn't lose track of it. Going back to the T-Rex, it ate its prey on the spot. That makes sense given how its sight works. The whole vision based on movement makes no sense in the story and is only there to have the don't move QTEs. Anyways, they find Josh flipping out nearby and slap some sense into him. If you saw the diary, Sam just says this.
Gosh, Hannah was down here for weeks, a month. She dug Beth up.
Sam.
Mike.
Hey, let's just get the fuck out of here.
Now's not the time, Sam. So for some reason, they decide to split up. Sam wants to climb out, but since Josh wouldn't be able to get up, Mike takes him back the way they came. Why not all of you go back? Why do you have to climb out? You're all going to the same place, and it's not like it's faster to climb out as we see later. So Mike and Josh go back, and in the water, Mike gets pulled under. Then a Wendigo comes out and kills Josh.
Oh, you're not real! No, you're not! Ah! 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 Ah!
sometimes Josh dies here, but other times he recognizes it as Hannah, and then it takes him away. Want to know what triggers him surviving? This line of dialogue here.
Josh, Hannah was down here for weeks, a month. She dug Beth up.
Sam.
Really? That is enough for Josh to recognize Hannah? Even though he doesn't know what a Wendigo is, and why does she not kill him? Does she recognize him? How would Josh hearing this make Hannah recognize him? Also, I like how the game has no faith in you to figure out that this Wendigo is Hannah, as when she appears, it just does this. Yeah, I couldn't figure that out on my own game. Thanks for telling me. It even does that if you read the diary, which already tells you this. Game, you're not as smart as you think. Your plot is very easy to understand. Stop treating everyone like an idiot. Hey, Mike is fine. I'm assuming the Wendigo pulled him under before, and considering how easily this thing can kill people, how did he survive? Anyways, oh hey, it's Matt. Been a while. It's almost like you were also forgotten about. And Jess is here too. So now these two are finally back in the story after being tossed aside for most of the game. But it's just a short section that means nothing. If Matt is alive, you play as him, but if not, you play as Jess. All that happens is you avoid the Wendigo and get out. That's it for these two. Or you can get them both killed.
You fucked up my face.
These two don't even know about the Wendigo. How do they know not to move? So back to Sam in another climbing section. She heads back to the lodge, but first takes a dip in freezing water. Do I really need to tell you how this is stupid? Again, why the snowy setting if the weather affects nothing? You could have just had it set in a forest and nothing would have changed. So she gets back and so does Mike, but he's moving a bit weird. Almost makes you think maybe it's a Wendigo in disguise. After all, in Dinkelberg's journal it says they can perfectly mimic their prey. Too bad the game forgot about that. All it ever amounted to was it mimicking Jess's voice, that one time. Could have been interesting if it was used more. So they get in, and now suddenly the lights work. Any reason you guys didn't turn them on earlier? Anyone who is still alive here will run past you, as now there are Wendigo here. Hey guys, why are you running? These things can't see you if you don't move. So everyone meets up in the main room where Hannah is also at. And now they remember they should stand still. This part is just a bunch of don't move QTs, and it really shows that not moving is the best strategy, otherwise Sam would not be able to survive this. The characters are complete dumbasses for forgetting about this most of the damn game. Actually, if Chris died back here, how would Sam and Mike know not to move? God, this whole story is a mess of inconsistencies. So depending on how well you don't move, and a couple choices depend on who lives or dies. Everyone here can die except for Chris. If he's here, he's guaranteed to live. So the plan is for Mike to break this light bulb and then turn it on, which will cause the place to blow up because the gas is leaking. Not sure if that would actually work like that, but whatever. Now you can be a dick and run for the light as soon as possible, but that will kill everyone, except Chris. And this is the only place for both Sam and Mike to die in the entire game. Yes, in this game about choices apparently having consequences, and having characters being able to die and the story continues without them, these two can't die up until this part. Mike either gets blown up or Sam, or blows himself up if he gets injured.
Huh? Huh? How's that for you, fuck?
And Sam literally only has one death if you fail a don't move QTE. But regardless of what happens, the place blows up, killing the Wendigo, and right on time for the rescue helicopter to arrive. And this right here is the main problem. The ending is always the same. It doesn't matter how many people are alive, it's the same. I don't know if Heavy Rain is better or worse than this, but I at least know it has different endings depending on your choices. But in Until Dawn, there's only one ending. Sure, you get some extra dialogue from the characters who survive, but the point is the ending is always the same. Remember Mass Effect 3 and how all your choices only led to 3 identical endings? Remember how much people hated that at the end of a series that emphasized your own choices changing the outcome of the story, boiled down to 3 picks? Red, blue, or green. Pick your favorite color. Red, obviously. This is essentially the same thing, except you can't even change the color of the explosion. But after the credits, and if Josh survived, we get a sequel bait scene showing him becoming a Wendigo. And that ends Until Dawn. Now that I'm done going over the story, it's time to talk about the totems. These things are found throughout the game, some in rather dickish locations. Totems will show you a possible future outcome. The color determines what it's trying to convey. Death totems are black and will show you the death of the character you are currently playing as. Danger totems are red and will show you a dangerous event. Lost totems are brown and will show you the death of one of the other characters. Guidance totems are yellow and will try to guide you into a good outcome. And fortune totems are white and will show you the result of a good outcome. Now, I saved them for the end so I could talk about them as a whole rather than individually. The totems are an interesting mechanic, but ultimately pointless. So first off, the lost totems are redundant. Why not just have them also be death totems? Danger totems are just straight up pointless because they warn you about things that don't matter. Oh yeah, glad I avoided that hand there even though nothing happens if it grabs me. Look at this one. It literally is warning you about Josh becoming a Wendigo even though that's a post-credits scene. Why is this here? All it does is spoil that scene. The totems are pointless because they don't do anything to help you. Death and lost totems show you a death, but without any clue to avoid it. Fortune totems show a good outcome, but without any clue on how to get that outcome. What am I supposed to do with this? The only ones that can be useful are the guidance totems because you have a chance of figuring out what to do, like showing a bird flying away before you have the option to throw a snowball at it, or showing Chris putting down the gun. But not all of them are helpful, and one of them can get a character killed. Yeah, it's back to the goddamn flare gun. It guides you into giving Matt the flare gun, even though that could lead him to wasting it and thus lead to his death if you try to save M. And this guidance totem literally just shows Mike getting his fingers caught in the bear trap. What is it guiding you to do? Get caught in it, or to avoid it? Even though it doesn't show the hand and so there's no way you would associate the two. Another problem with these things is for a lot of them, the event they show happens much later on. An example is in Chapter 2. When you enter the lodge as Chris through the window, there's a totem right there that shows Emily dying in a fire. Now I do find its placement funny since you're supposed to get the door open by melting the lock with deodorant and a lighter. It makes you think you could accidentally set the place on fire here, but you can't. And the scene of M dying is literally at the end of the game. That doesn't help anyone avoid getting her killed there. What the totems should have done is perhaps give a riddle or some kind of clue that you have to decipher. Make it so you can easily pinpoint when the event is going to happen, but not make it so easy to figure out what to do. Or even have the message be misleading so you always have to think about each one. It shouldn't be obvious or overly cryptic. Now the more totems you collect, the more parts of a video you uncover, which gives you some backstory to Dinkelberg. Basically, his grandfather hunted the Macapichu, which was like a super Wendigo, but he was never able to beat it. Then it reiterates the whole miners being trapped and eating each other, which you would have figured out long before completing this. And then it gets to when Hannah and Beth went missing. It was the Macapichu chasing them, and Dinkelberg was trying to save them, but was too late. So to avenge the two girls, he killed the Macapichu, even though he knows it will release the spirit. It's never outright stated, but it's implied that the Macapichu possessed Hannah, which is why she is stronger than the others. The scene is nice and all, but it's just repeating information we already knew or could piece together ourselves. The only new information here is about the Macapichu, which doesn't really mean anything. Until Dawn is terrible. It sacrifices everything for a single linear story, which unfortunately isn't very good. I honestly don't see how people were able to so easily overlook all the flaws in the story. Okay, maybe the mainstream press, given how good they seem to be at critiquing games. Maybe I'm just not looking in the right place, but I haven't seen anyone really point out most of the problems with this game. The story itself has so many issues. It doesn't know what it wants to be about. It starts with Josh wanting revenge for what happened to his sisters, but then it completely changes focus towards the Wendigo. The two plots are only barely connected with Hannah being the main Wendigo, but that doesn't really affect the plot. It's disjointed. Most of the characters are unlikable and all of them are idiots, which makes me not care when they die. Josh's plan makes no sense, the Wendigo's vision makes no sense. There are plot holes. Most of the characters are dropped out of the story and forgotten about until the very end, if they survive. The pacing is unbearably slow for the first half of the game, and even when things pick up, you still have long sections of walking. The game treats you like an idiot and spells everything out for you. It's very unsubtle, with the horror throwing jump scares and gore everywhere. All the focus went into the graphics. And the story and gameplay suffered for it. The gameplay is just walking, looking at things, and QuickTime events. And the worst thing of all, your choices don't matter. Most choices amount to nothing, or insignificant aesthetical differences. I'm not saying every single choice, even the smallest ones, have to have huge story-impacting changes. But the problem is, none of the choices greatly affect the story at all. There are some changes, characters can die, but the story is unaffected by it. It's the same story no matter what you do. Jess's death means nothing because the story plays out the same if she would have survived, just with a small footnote at the end. Same thing with Matt. He gets dropped out of the story after this point to not affect the story at all. It happens with every character. After a part, they can die. And it's really obvious when entire scenes have no changes at all, even if it doesn't make sense in the situation. It seems they made the story with everyone except Sam and Mike dying in mind. And each character has very few opportunities to die. Wouldn't it be better if everyone had a lot of different ways to die and the finale could be with any character that managed to survive? Wouldn't it be amazing if every choice, or at least most choices, gave significant story changes? Yes, it requires effort, time, and of course money. But maybe if they didn't spend so much on the graphics and celebrity actors, there would be some budget left over to make your choices matter, and to get better writers, or to have an actual game. The game flaunts the butterfly effect around like it's so proud of itself, but it's a joke. What even is the butterfly effect? It's small, seemingly insignificant things can have large effects somewhere else. And that does not describe Until Dawn in the slightest. That is this game's crippling flaw, the thing that completely breaks it. But the thing about that is it requires multiple playthroughs to even see it, and I have a feeling that most reviewers who liked this game have only played through it once. This is not a game you can accurately review in one playthrough. Only playing it once can be quite enjoyable because you don't know how much of a choice you don't have. I was initially fooled by this game's illusion of choice when it came out. I watched a couple people play it, and while I knew it was a game I wouldn't enjoy purely because of the gameplay, it still fascinated me and I looked into it. But I was not pleased by the results. Upon closer examination, the entire thing fell apart, and I was left disappointed. I saw potential, but it wasn't reached. This is a perfect example of how focusing too much on story or graphics can harm a game. And that's all I have to say about this game. There's also some weird VR DLC for the game, but I never really looked into it. And I don't like Until Dawn at all, so I wouldn't even think about spending money on DLC for it. And then there's The Inpatient, which is apparently a prequel to Until Dawn, which I didn't actually know existed, let alone released until I was already well into making this review. Apparently it also wasn't received as well. And I keep seeing things like it's a lackluster entry in the Until Dawn mythos. Well, Until Dawn is already lackluster, so I think it fits. But before you ask, no, I'm not going to review it. Until Dawn is awful, so why would I even consider playing its prequel, especially when people who did like Until Dawn don't like it? No thanks, I'd rather play almost anything else. And like I said at the beginning, if you somehow still like this game after all this, keep enjoying it. But for me, Until Dawn is truly terrible.
To show you the power of flex tape, I solved this
Josh
in half and repaired it with only flex tape.
You are dead, dead, dead. You are dead, dead, dead. Thought you were hot. Guess what? You're not. You are dead, dead, dead. You brought your whole adventure to a screeching halt. You